Hello, and thank you for stopping by the Massachusetts Beer Reviews channel of YouTube. I am Thomas Metal 75, and this is your Massachusetts Beer Reviews on a Saturday afternoon. It is the 8th of July 2017, not January. And I have a beer and a ramble to go on here. The beer is from the Mayflower Brewing Company. It is their Pilsner from their Cooper series, Cooper's series. It's called Priscilla Pilsner. 6% alcohol by volume, 35 IBUs. It's a Czech Pilsner. It was brewed in February 2016 and packaged on April 2016 with 100 barrels limited to the series. And it says packaged April 12th, 2016. I need to get a bottle opener. Or a trusty Bic lighter. And they say on the website, this Bohemian Pilsner pays tribute to our ancestor, Priscilla Mullen. She was one of the few women on board the Mayflower who survived the journey in the harsh first winter. She was later immortalized as a unrequited love of Miles Standish and a eventful wife of John Alden in the 1858 poem "The Courtship of Miles Standish" by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, if you care about that crap. I'm gonna put it in a Stella glass. Now, I've noticed, as you can tell through some of the more recent videos I've done, that seems like I'm getting old beer all the time, and I'm kind of finally sick and tired of it, because, I mean, we shouldn't have to pay for old beer, and the beer stores shouldn't have to provide us old beer, especially if it's IPAs or things that have a lot of flavors to them. And why shouldn't you drink old beer? Or why should you drink fresh beer? I wrote a couple of notes. I have three really main points to bring up in this conversation. The first one, why you shouldn't drink old beer and drink fresh beer, is that hops and added flavors are going to die over time. Beer is a very volatile substance. Once you put it in a bottle or can, or you put it into a keg, or whatever you do to it, once you package that beer, it is going to start deteriorating, and you only have a limited time before the beer flavors diminish from what either the packaging says, or the brewery says the flavor should be, or what the flavor should be for a particular style, fresh. I think issue really high percentage beers are like barley wines, or Baltic porters, or imperial stouts, or quadruples from Belgium, or those kind of things. Those higher ABV beers, and some beers that have wild yeast strains in them, or like funky sour beers, some of those kind of beers can be held for a longer period of time in a cellar. So you can age them like wine, but basic beers, pilsners, lagers, single IPAs, pale ales, even some double IPAs, brown ales, milk stouts, Irish dry stouts, session IPAs, just your light beers, basic beer styles that aren't really heavy in the alcohol percentage range. And most beer brewers want you to drink them really fresh. And one of the reasons they do want you to drink them fresh, another reason besides that hops and added flavors are going to die over time, is brewers want you to drink a beer when the desired outcome has been reached in their brewing process. And over time, the intended flavors can diminish. So, brewers they start to package beers at the immediate moment when whatever they're going for has been reached in that beer. And they want you to drink that fresh when those intended flavors are already there. So if you're buying a beer 6 months out, a year out, maybe you're going to rate this beer bad if you're doing a beer review. Because, well, you're reading this description on the beer and it tastes nothing like that. Well, again, flavors diminish over time. And then the other point I want to make about that is the longer a beer sits, the more time oxidation, temperature, and light has to wreak havoc on that beer. So there are many different factors environmentally and, in physics that affect the beer and the way that it tastes. And sometimes that can just be due to distribution and how it's stored in a liquor store that can really wreak havoc on these beers. But I don't think that unless it's imperial stouts, Baltic porters, barley wines, wheat wines, really high alcohol percentage beers that are kind of designed to be cellared, that we should really be accepting these things. Now, I don't know if a lot of what happens with these major breweries, say like Sierra Nevada or Oscar Blues or Stone or Lagunitas or, Harpoon or any of the major beer brands of craft beer. I don't know what happens where I seem to, like in my neck of the woods in southern Massachusetts, I don't have a very good time getting really, really, really fresh beer from a beer store. So I don't know if these major breweries are having a hard time pushing beers off of the shelves and that they end up just staying there a long time. If the distribution isn't getting beers to stores, fresh anymore, or if the stores themselves aren't putting out really fresh beer and they're just holding on to it for some strange reason. So, not sure why the beers can't really be fresh on the shelves often than they are, but the beer, you got to go and look at the company's website. They might tell you, fresh from 90 days from when the beer was packaged, or brewery fresh for 180 days, or they might even have not even just a package date or a bottled on date. They might have a freshness date on the bottle. So those are the things you want to look at, are freshness dates and born on dates and bottling dates. What I don't like when I see a beer is a lot code or a bottling code or a Julienne date that the average Joe has to have a PhD or a physics degree to read it and understand when the hell a beer was brewed. Simply tell me when the beer was brewed. I can then determine if I want to spend my money on that beer, or if I want to complain to the beer store that I'm at and tell them, yo, this beer is old, you're trying to sell old beer to people. Yeah. They might have bought way too much beer or put too much beer, got too much beer into the store, and now they're trying to sell it a year later, which is shitty to consumers. You're spending your money on a beer, on products. They should at least be what they're presented to be, and if it's an older beer, it's not going to be presented as what it is. So you let the beer stores know, you let the distributors know, and that's what I'm going to do in the future when I go to beer stores and I keep seeing these old beers, because the Priscilla from the Cooper series, all the Cooper series from Mayflower come in 4-pack. No excuse that a 4-pack that's $10 and change should be from last freaking year. It's ridiculous. But anyways, on to the Priscilla Pilsner. It is orangey colored in the light, or in some darkness on the camera. It's definitely lemony yellow. Some good notes there in some light. It definitely has a nice pinky's worth of head, but the head's still sticking around. And it does have a slightly a carbonation, champagne-like carbonation, so it's not bad for a year. The nose is Czech Pilsner, the Bohemian spices, but very subdued. There's the, again, spicy notes, the grassy, hoppy notes. There's a grainy, papery note to it. There's a crackery, white bready note. Malts and the noble hop spice. That's what I'm getting. Cheers. Priscilla's Pilsner. Lots of hop spice. Not a lot of carbonation zing, but there is a bit right now of the prickliness to it. Just like in the nose, I'm definitely getting a combination between the noble, or not noble, Saz. A combination between the spicy Saz hops and the Pilsner malts, which are giving it a crackery, bready, white bread note, almost a floury, bready note, if you know what I mean by that. Biscuity. It's a basic Pilsner. It's not bad. It's on the light side of medium. I would say for all intensive purposes, it's crisp, very clean, super refreshing. A 4-pack of this and $10 later for it. Not a good value for the style of beer that it is. If you're going to have a limited release beer, it might as well make it something more substantial and more enjoyable rather than a run-of-the-mill kind of a beer that everybody can get. You might as well buy Stella Artois for this style of beer. Or Birra Moretti. Not Birra Moretti. You get the point. Go buy a German beer or Czech Pilsner, Bohemian Pilsner from that region or from a brewer that makes it in the United States in a 6-pack or in a bigger bomber bottle, and you might get a better value out of it. I mean, it's just a B beer. It's fine. I'll give it an 83 or 5, 84. It's not bad. It's just nothing to write home about. So, I mean, I kind of do wish the beer was fresher. It might have had a larger, hoppier presence to it. All the flavors might have been pronounced more. I think a brewer, I don't think Mayflower is going to be disappointed with this review, even if it was fresher. But I think a brewer would be really angry if you tried to review a double, or if you tried to review, say, I don't know, try to review Lagunitas IPA, and it was a year and a half later you found it in your garage, and then you tried to review it, and you gave it a bad review. Well, of course you're going to give it a bad review. Everything that they tried to do, and all the flavors they tried to present to you in that glass are now dead and gone. That IPA has turned into an amber ale, and that's not the style of that beer. So I would recommend, before I sign off here, I would recommend that you go on the brewer's website, you try to find out if they have a freshness date, or by that I mean how long out their beers are reported to be good until. A lot of hoppy beers, they say 90 days. Or hop-forward beers, even American barley wines. But they can age. Another thing you want to look for is a description. Unless you're going to go blind into the beer and it's not very old, that's another story. But if it's a little bit, 4, 5, 6 months plus down the road, you might want to go on the brewer's website and look at a description of that beer, and then and then drink one of the beers and see if it's still matching that description. If it's not matching that description, you might have a problem with the beer that you bought, and I might go back to the store and complain about old beer. I'm going to start doing that if I buy old beer, or if I ever buy another variety pack in my life. I might start complaining about that stuff when the variety pack is a year old. So, anyways, if you have an opinion on fresh beer, dates on the bottles, you want to continue that discussion, why should we not drink fresh, or why should we not drink old beer, or what's the benefits from drinking a fresher beer, or why you like to see the dates on bottles, comment below. You got a suggestion for a review? Comment that below. This has been Massachusetts Beer Reviews. Checking out the Priscilla Pilsner from Mayflower Brewing Company. It's just a B beer. Pretty good, but not worthy of really running all over town to seek it out. So, till next time, keep tasting those great beers. Cheers, keep drinking those fresh beers, and I'll see you soon.